A good user story must define something that is of value to the end user. This could include a feature, performance requirement, or something the user has asked for and is demonstratable in the sprint review meeting. You can see in our user story here, as an online user, I want to search for plants that fit criteria so I can find plants to buy that will thrive in my garden. This is a user story that has a final requirement that the customer wants in the website. It gives value to the end user. But developer user stories are also necessary. An example is a spike. A spike is where the team investigates, researches, and prototypes so they understand a fuzzy area well enough to be able to estimate it. But spikes need to be time-boxed. They have to have clear goals and an outcome that's expected. This ensures the spike stays focused, using only the time needed to satisfy the goals and the outcome. Letting a spike turn into an opportunity for the team to do fun research and prototyping not related to the issue in the spike does not deliver value to the end user, which violates the Agile principle of continually delivering valuable software. Now, developer user stories can also describe the architecture and infrastructure needed in order to have a potentially shippable increment. Here, if we go back to our very first sprint, we have this create plant table in the database user story, which actually was used to create the database itself. You see from the acceptance criteria, we had to create our database, we had to create our schema for our table structure for our plants, and then we wanted users to be able to log on to the database to view the structures, add and review plant records, and management here, that the data remains over database restart. Now, since this is infrastructure, it's clearly needed. We can't have our plant website without a database. And we could have written this user story in a way that just said, we need this infrastructure item, otherwise we can't have a web database. But that doesn't really show value to the user. Developer user stories need to be written in a way that describes its value to the customer. Here we've said, as an online user, I want to have access to detailed plant information so I will know if the plants will work in my garden. And we have done that. We have a way to store the information, all the information, the detailed plant information the customer wants, and we've given them a way to demonstrate it. So this can be actually demonstrated in the sprint review. This is related to the V in invest. Besides standing for valuable, it can also refer to vertical, because when splitting user stories, we want to split them vertically instead of horizontally. A horizontal user story will include a complete layer of functionality: network, database architecture, persistent data, some logic, or the user interface. So this user story could have been written to just, we're going to create the database, and that's it. We have a database at the end. But horizontal slices are not of value to the customer. What good is a database without the user interface so it can be viewed and demonstrated? A vertical slice of functionality will have a little of each of those horizontal layers. So there will be some database, some logic, some presentation in each user story. Something that can be demonstrated as working code. If we go back and look at a user story further on in the sprint, here in 5, US 41, this is displaying plant information on the website. As an online user, I want to be able to display detailed criteria about plants in the website so I will know if they're right for me to buy for my garden. You can see down here, we're going to display the detailed plant information. We can have images that can be zoomed. We might have multiple images that are stored as thumbnails so the customer can select from them. This is a vertical slice of those horizontal features. We're going to have some GUI. We're going to have some logic for the zooming. We're going to have to be able to go to the database to retrieve the information, so there's some networking. The database schema might have to be updated so that we can store multiple images. This is a small vertical slice, and it's of value to the user. Now, it's important to remember value is not value in the business sense, that you can sell this feature. This user story is much too small a slice of functionality. It's not going to be a business moneymaker all by itself. And normally, several of these user stories are needed to completely flesh out a full feature. However, each user story needs to provide a slice of the feature that is of value to the user. The V in the INVEST guidelines stands for valuable. And what is considered valuable is always in the eyes of the end user.